is a dream, time like a stream, carries our burdens away. Never despair, joys everywhere, love can befriend you today. Free from all fears like birds on the air, soar above griefs and worries, seek joy and be gay.
Often on earth, things of great worth, worldly ambitions defy. Sometimes a friend helps us ascend up from life's cares to the sky. Love is a star, though shining afar. It can guide us and help us toward light to draw nigh. Life is a dream, time like a stream, carries our burdens away. Never despair, joys everywhere, love can befriend you today. Free from all care, like birds on the air, soar above griefs and worries, seek joy and be gay. Often on earth, things of great worth, worldly ambitions defy. Sometimes a friend helps us ascend up from our stairs to the sky. Love is a star, though shining afar. It can guide us and help us toward light to draw nigh. Let's sing together. Life is a dream time.
This week's reading is from Rays of the One Light, which are parallel commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita. And this week's reading is entitled, Does God Hide the Truth? Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. In last week's reading, we saw that the great masters themselves counsel discretion in the dissemination of truth. The counter-argument is sometimes made, but the Lord doesn't hide. He reveals His beauty in the sunsets, His tender sympathy in the rain, His wrath in the thunder, His restless energy in the brooks, His power in the sunlight. There are exoteric truths, and there are also esoteric truths. There is that which is revealed impersonally and left up to us to interpret, such as the thunder and our perception of it as divine wrath. The rain and our perception of it as God's sympathy. But behind even God's most open expressions, there lies impenetrable mystery. The wind blows where it wills, said Jesus in the Gospel of St. John. You hear the sound of it, but you do not know where it comes from or where it is going. So is everyone who is born of the Spirit. And Sri Krishna says in the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, By me the whole vast universe of things is spread abroad. By me the unmanifest. In me are all existences contained, not I in them. God's hidden reality cannot be understood by the reasoning faculty. India's Shankya philosophy states frankly, Ishwar Ashiddha, God is not provable. A willingness to seek the underlying reality behind appearances is essential for those who would know God. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
This is a very short but sweet reading, and yet it brings up such a huge topic. One can't even begin to grace the surface. I'm just going to repeat the last line of the reading. A willingness to seek the underlying reality behind appearances is essential for those who would know God. So it sounds simple, but in reality, it's not easy when you're living in a material world with material realities, surrounded by material-minded people. It's difficult sometimes to break free, but there comes a desperation inside of us that says, I must break free. I remember a few instances when I was young where I felt the unseen was trying to, break through some of my barrier to it. I grew up in a very materialistic family, so there was no true feeling of God. I think I had some inner experiences, but there was no discussion of God, no talking about God, really. Even though we went to church, I found out later that most of my family was not atheist, but agnostic at least. And I've told this story before. When I was 13 years old, I stood up in church and I just thought, nobody's practicing any of this. Don't you know? Can't you see? With my youthful exuberance about how society is so hypocritical. These are things we think as children, Society is hypocritical and no one follows what they believe and they all say the opposite of what they really mean. So, in a way, that's kind of tuning into the unseen. We know something's off. Something's off. And then I remember kind of feeling as though I was getting help periodically, praying and actually getting results. And it was like, oh, okay, And that started to build a fire inside. And, we all wake up at different times, different ages, and no age is better than any other age, although we sometimes see the very young people coming here and think, why wasn't I like that when I was younger? And so we begin to see and seek the unseen. We begin to have a curiosity for the unseen. I wanted to read something from the autobiography of a yogi. This was specifically, I remember when I read this the first time, I thought, that's it. So I wanted to read this. There it is. To surmount it comes from the Law of Miracles chapter. To surmount Maya was the task assigned to the human race by the millennial prophets. To rise above the duality of creation and perceive the unity of the Creator was conceived as man's highest goal. Those who cling to the cosmic illusion must accept its essential law of polarity, flow and ebb, rise and fall, day and night, pleasure and pain, good and evil, birth and death. The cyclic pattern assumes a certain anguishing monotony. That was the words. After man has gone through a few thousand human births, he begins to cast a hopeful eye beyond the compulsions of Maya. I just remember thinking, anguishing monotony, that's what I feel. Just this there's got to be more. It was this desperation, there's got to be more. And if you think about it, life is like an iceberg, where our little life is the tip of the iceberg, and then we have all these other lives that are below the surface of the ocean, all the other connections we have with God, all the other ways of being that are unseen that we have yet to discover. And slowly but surely, we begin to pick away at the iceberg. We begin to dig and go deeper and deeper into the iceberg. And in a way, when we're just living at the tip of the iceberg, we think we understand everything. The material world, in a way, it's kind of like a game. You know, Master said we're given a forget shot between lives so we don't figure out the game. Otherwise, we go, wait a minute, wait. I did this before. What did I do? Okay, all these movies are about that too, or maybe even playing a video game where you play a video game and you choose one direction and then you die. And so then you learn you learn to do a different move in the video game because you remember. But what do? We have the forget shot. So our job is to try and remember. Our job is to suddenly think and wake up and go, anguishing monotony. Everything keeps to seem to be repeating in life. There's got to be more. There has to be more. And then the heart starts leading us into the direction of meditation. I remember before Ananda, I was meditating on my own, and I felt this guidance. I was just in my first job out of college, and I felt this guidance like a little whisper, and I kept trying to find out who that whisper was coming from, because in college I had really started to feel as though I was waking up to inner realities. And then so afterwards I was still pursuing this, and I decided that it was my guardian angel. I didn't have any other way to describe it. But I would ask, and I felt it was a her. And who knows, maybe it was Divine Mother or Master. And so this was before Autobiography of a Yogi, and I remember I was given this very specific guidance on what to do around my job, and it worked. And I thought, okay, and I started asking this guidance more and more for more guidance to try and follow that guidance. But then I read Autobiography, then I read Anguishing Monotony, and then, boy, everything changed from there with Master. I wanted to read another part of that chapter. This is a fun story that Master wrote, that once we begin to follow that inner guidance, we realize we start breaking rules. We start breaking the rules that everyone has set for us. And most people don't support us breaking rules in society. And they don't understand. Why do you want to spend time on your own and meditate? What's going on here? Why do you only talk about God? or why do you want to talk about God? I remember when we went to Gurgaon, in India for the first time in 2006, we spent a lot of time with Swamiji. He was there, we would have tea with him, we would do many things with him, and he would always speak, and he was giving satsangs, all sorts of things. We got to just spend time with him. And I don't really remember how I was before that time. I'm sure I was also pursuing God more. But after that time, I felt as though he really magnetized all of us to just really want God more and more. This is when he was in bliss most of the time, and just his fire inside made us all feel that fire. And when I came back to America. We did for about 3 years before we came back here to Chennai. And a few of my friends, I heard, especially one friend I thought was a friend, said, all she wants to do is talk about God. She's no fun anymore. And I was so hurt. And yet I thought, you know what? I've got to talk about God. I have to. It's all I'm interested in. Last night, I had an interesting dream. I dreamt that I was serving some woman, like I was her assistant. And there was kind of, not a servant, but someone who was kind of our assistant. And this person was going to go shopping. And so we had apples, but we were wondering what else we might want. And so I said, well, maybe grapes, maybe plums. And then he wanted to talk about, the different kind of plums there are and the different kinds of grapes there are. And do you know about this one grape that was established in 18-something? All these things happen. And so I finally said, I'm sorry, I just have to tell you, I'm a yogi. I don't care about any of these things. And I would not say that, I don't think, in real life. I probably would think it, but I wouldn't say it. And I just felt it was such strong, like, I just can't do this. I can't go through the agonizing monotony about talking about all the different kind of plums there are and all the different kinds of grapes there are. I just can't do it. And so then I woke up. Oh, but right before I woke up, he was like, really? Huh? And he looked interested in hearing more about God. But then the alarm went off. And but Swamiji said that more and more in his dreams, he would behave as he would in life. And so this is kind of an interesting thing to think about. When you have a dream, do you begin to behave as you would in life? Very often we're a different personality, we're a different character in our dreams, and maybe doing kung fu or flying around the universe or something, you never know. But Swamiji said he became more and more this way, and he would, even in a dream say, oh, this is a dream, and be able to tap into this unseen part of life and know what the reality was, even in a dream. He had tapped that knowledge. He had tapped that awareness of even knowing that. And so we begin to trust this inner awareness more than the outer material thing going on. That means when bad dramas are happening in our life, we know, wait a minute, if I just tune into some peace and calmness, I might be able to solve something rather than react like everyone else is reacting. Sometimes people get upset when you don't react the way you are. What is it? Don't you care? But a higher law is compassion. A higher law is understanding. A higher law is offering comfort. These are higher laws, so it doesn't mean just because we may not, in our hearts, feel as excited, it doesn't mean we don't try and respond to another person's pain or grief. But I wanted to read this story because it's a bit like us turning to meditation rather than perhaps traditional religious practices. So this is also from the Law of Miracles. It's so fun. The great novelist Leo Tolstoy wrote a delightful story, The Three Hermits. His friend, Nicholas Roerich, has summarized the tale as follows. On an island, there lived 3 old hermits. They were so simple that the only prayer they used were, "We are 3, thou art 3, have mercy on us." Great miracles were manifested during this naive prayer. The local bishop came to hear about the 3 hermits and their inadmissible prayer and decided to visit them in order to teach them the canonical invocations. He arrived on the island, told the hermits that their heavenly petition was undignified, and taught them many of the customary prayers. The bishop then left on a boat. He saw, following the ship, a radiant light. As it approached, he discerned the 3 hermits, who were holding hands and running upon the waves in an effort to overtake the vessel. "We have forgotten the prayers you taught us," they cried as they reached the bishop, "and have hastened to ask you to repeat them." The odd bishop shook his head. "Dear ones," he replied humbly, "continue to live with your old prayer." Don't we wish that people would respond that way? But people can't necessarily see. If someone is material-minded, they can't see that you're following a spiritual practice, and they don't care. In this case, with these hermits, of course, luckily the bishop had kind of a sense of, okay, maybe I'm headed in this direction too. It takes that kind of having a belief in the unseen to even be able to recognize that someone is a great saint, that someone, to be able to perceive inside about this. I had a dream once of a person that I know who always wished ill on me. And I had this person by the shoulders and I said, "Don't you see, I've always loved you." And the person was just blank. They could not receive love. And I understood more deeply what was going on with that person. They just did not have the ability to receive love. They didn't have the ability to have a soft heart. And so whatever I was to them, they just didn't have the ability. It wasn't me and my fault. It was their inability to be able to break through their barriers and be more unconditionally loving, which is what I would have preferred. But they didn't have the ability. And so it takes compassion, even when someone wishes ill on us, to still be able to give them compassion for how they're behaving. And in a way, these types of things, when we have compassion for other people, when we look at our Guru Bhais and say, "I know that you're trying your hardest." We can say it to our family too. But with Guru Bhais, you know, they're all meditating, they're all trying their hardest, and yet look, we're all really imperfect. But Swamiji would see us in our highest. He would see us, he would make everyone sit up straight in the room. He would make everyone feel, yes, I can find freedom. This can happen for me, you know, and he would say, I did it, you can do it. And we would think, yes, you did it, I can do it. Very often, people will say, well, in my next life, I'll learn that better. And I always think, don't say that. Master said that we can become Jivan Muktas in this lifetime if we follow Kriya Yoga. That we should aim to be Jivan Muktas. Okay, maybe there's another life, but why focus on that? Why not focus instead on freedom and, more importantly, loving God more deeply? I had another story. I wanted to read this. It's not a story, but This is how we need to be with Divine Mother. This is how we need to live our life, tuning into the unseen, and then realizing all we do want to do is talk about God. Okay, maybe, we talk about the weather and other things, but really in our hearts, all we want to do is talk to God. All we want to do is send our love to God and receive that love back. It's a much more interesting reality, what goes on inside of us, than this outer world here. Doesn't mean we don't engage, but we can spread that inner joy we feel to others when we pursue the inner life. So I've always loved this way of clinging to the Divine Mother. I will be the naughty baby of the Divine Mother. In the hall of life, decorated with mountains, stormy cataracts, and wild scenery, I have played long. So this is life as a game. Each time, when tired of play, I cried for thee. Thou didst drop down through the skylight of my heart's craving some new doll of fame, friends, and prosperity to quiet me. This time, Divine Mother, I will play the naughty baby. I will sob unceasingly. No more shall the toys of earthly pleasure stop my cries. O Divine Mother, thou must come soon, and I will waken all creation with my cries. I will make all thy sleeping children wake and join me in a chorus of wails. Forsake thy busyness with the housework of thy creation. I demand attention. I demand thee. I no longer want thy playthings. And so in life, we pursue the playthings. We pursue, I want a new car. If I visualize it, maybe I'll, manifest it. We go through this desire to manifest and have abundance. These are all New Age terms that I got educated in before Ananda. And I could never quite buy into it. There were all these people really into affirming for their abundance. And I kind of thought, is that really what I want to do? And so we go through these playthings, and Divine Mother throws us this, she throws us that. We think parking spaces are, given by God. We think we think the little things that happen, it happened. But what she really wants is our deep love. And so she throws us these other things until we finally say, enough, fine. Those little small things, fine. But what I really want is the big one, and that's you. What I really want is, I don't care if I get a good parking lot. I don't care if I suddenly the right thing showed up at the right time. I don't care if any of that happens. I'm not seeking that from you. I am just seeking your love. I just want to love you. We rewatched Song of Bernadette the other day, which is just such a beautiful movie. We show it here periodically. You can get it on iTunes. And she's a great saint. And she has a vision of Divine Mother and gets a whole village in France. It's a true story. Whole village in France believing her. And she's the only one that can see the Divine Mother, but she is so radiant and so full of joy and full of love for the divine that people believe as well. And then at one point she goes over, a Divine Mother says, go and drink of the stream, go and wash in the stream. And so she goes to a pile of dirt and starts digging. And then she puts the dirt on her hands and on her arms and on her face. And her family is like, oh my God, she's really going over the edge. Let's go get her. And so they say, okay, let's take you back home now. And the whole crowd is like, ha ha ha, look at her. She just is crazy. And not everyone felt that way. And then a stream, Lourdes, happened. And if you have heard of Lourdes, it's a huge pilgrimage spot in France. And people began to come from far and near and dipping their children in it and taking the waters and being miraculously healed by all of this. And so we were watching this, and towards the end of her life, she got all this cancer of the leg. And this one nun who, that nun represents the part of us that tries and tries and tries and gets more and more tense on the spiritual path. I must find God, and yet nothing's happening in my meditation, but I'm doing it anyway. And their life is just full of more and more tension and more unhappiness from that tension. Just this inability to relax, this inability to let go of the tension and try something that works, rather than just the rule in our head that says, this is how I do it. I do this and that and this, and then I'm supposed to have God. And so this nun, she represented that part of us that are this way. And she had in her mind that the only way you can come to God is by suffering. You have to suffer. And little Bernadette was saying, oh, well, I've never suffered before, so, you're greater than I am. And yet she was kind of still getting attention from others, and because she was so saintly, she was ill. Finally, she kind of stopped and said, oh, well, maybe I do have something to show you. And so she raised up her little nun outfit to show this cancer all over her leg. And the doctor said anyone who had that would feel incredible pain every moment. And she said, but I have never suffered. And it's because she was uplifted in her heart. She was uplifted to the divine. To her, to most of us, we'd be praying, God, please get rid of my cancer. God, please get rid of my cancer. Everybody, please pray, get rid of my cancer. I'm in so much pain. But she was at this elevated state where she said, it's just my body. What I want is the divine. I can't even ask for myself that this be healed. In fact, they said, why don't you go and get the water from Lourdes? Why don't you go and get that water and heal yourself? And she said, the water is not for me. The woman told me the water is not for me. And so she knew she was not to use that water to heal herself. It was for others. And really, her life was at a close. It has to end somehow. And so when she was on the bed, now I remember reading this wasn't exactly how it happened. What did she actually say at the end of her life? Do you remember?
We just know what the movie.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it was similar to what the movie did. But she's going through doubt, which they often say that saints will just go through a very negative, doubtful period where there's this cutoff from the presence of God. And it's a testing time. And so she was saying, she knew she was dying. She said, I'm never going to see the woman again. The woman, Divine Mother, but she called her the woman. I'm never going to see her again. I'm never going to see her again. And then the woman shows up. And she says, her face shines. In fact, the woman who played this saint actually had very deep experiences around this movie. She lifted herself up and just said, I love you, I love you, I love you. And that's all we have to do. Say with our whole heart and feel with our whole heart, I love you, I love you, I love you. That's all we have to do. We have to feel it, but have that come from the heart. I love you. That's why we're willing to be the naughty baby. Because we love Divine Mother so much, we're willing to just grab a hold of her and say, sorry, no more play toys. I want you. I love you. And it's that attitude of I love you, not what are you going to give me, that creates this circuit that brings that divine love back. We don't say I love you to get something. We just say I love you because that love flows through. And then you find the love is returned so much bigger. And it's like a electronic amplifier. Of course, being an electrical engineer, I I had to design many amplifiers. And so there's this thing called a feedback loop. And so we create that feedback loop. And then the divine comes back to us. Deeper and deeper. We feel that love. So in our meditation, it is guaranteed by Master that we will have deeper and deeper experiences. I was reading to our Kriya preparation students the other day, Master's words on the different levels we go when the heart calms down. This is from Patanjali, and you can see the Patanjali book that we have Swamiji wrote. And the first stage is where we are restless all the time and we can't gather anything. And it's because the chitta in the heart is agitated and excited by the world. Then as we begin to meditate, I'm going to skip the addiction part that he talks about. I'm going to go to the part when he says, then as we begin to meditate, we start feeling half calm and half agitated, or half restless and half calm. And we might dip back in periodically to the all restless, but this is a guaranteed stage we have. Guaranteed if we practice Kriya Yoga. And then we go from half restless and half calm to mostly calm and sometimes restless. Again, this is guaranteed. And then you go from that, and then he said, you have the soul bliss. And he said, during the time when you're mostly calm and mostly restless, this is the part where we often talk about here. How in the silence of your meditation, you tune into the 8 aspects of God, the light, the power, the joy, the calmness, the love, the peace. Master said peace is the easiest. What else am I missing? Sound. So we tune into these aspects of God. We tune into the Guru. This is the 4th stage. In our silence, we tune into the aspects of God. That's not the time when we just sit in restlessness. We tune into these aspects as best as possible. If you don't remember, go back to your Kriya preparation book. It's written out there, and also in Essence of Self-Realization, it's Master goes through the 8 aspects of God. And so then we learn to tune in, and we learn more and more to feel that presence. And when we feel that presence in the silence, when we're done with our meditation, we can bring that presence we felt into our life. And then we meditate in the morning, we meditate in the evening, because in the morning we wash away the dream state we were just in, and who knows what we were doing, karate chops, flying through the air, or saying we don't want to hear about fruit. And then in the evening, we wash away the day. And then we start over. And that makes the reality of what's going on in the meditation our main reality. And the rest is what we have to do. We have to keep the brain busy. We want to do service. We want to do things. But Master said, in the morning, I wake up and I hear, "You must serve." And I say, "I will not. I am going to meditate." And then I meditate and I forget everything. It's so powerful. His priorities are clear. I meditate and I forget everything. In fact, it takes great courage to be able to follow the spiritual path. It creates great courage when we are in that restless state to continue meditating. It's very easy to say, when I meditate, nothing much happens. But in reality, a lot is happening. We just aren't feeling it, tuning into it, having faith, and having courage that we will get through the difficult part and get to those guaranteed places that Master says. Of course, he says the soul bliss that you feel, you don't even have to tune in to the 8 aspects. You don't have to meditate on the Guru. You are feeling unified with the divine. You're feeling as though you are just floating in the bliss with the divine. There's no thinking, there's no thought. You're just in it. And he said, actually, and this is the stage I am in. And he said, meditation is the flower and soul bliss is the fruit. And as you have the soul bliss, the flower of meditation drops away. He said, I don't have to meditate anymore, but a yogi always puts time aside for God. And so I put time aside for God and I meditate. But he said, I don't need to do it anymore because I am always in that bliss. But he said, we are guaranteed to reach these stages. He says, even after a year of meditation, you're in stage 4 very often, where you're mostly calm and sometimes restless. And then he said, and so let's see, try and look at your life. What is your life? Are you mostly restless? There's a second stage where you have energy, but it's going outward from the senses and is involved in overdoing our sense pleasures. And then the third is, or are you sometimes calm and sometimes restless? Or are you mostly calm and sometimes restless? These are very helpful ways to look at life. But Kriya Yoga guarantees this evolution. And he said that when, wowie zowie experiences happen, those are singular experiences that you can't judge your spiritual progress by. You can only judge these ways of being, especially, do you love God more? Do you have more peace and calmness in your life? These are the way we judge our spiritual progress. But he said, most of all, how much are you loving God? How much are you putting your mind on God and feeling God and pursuing bliss in your meditations? I wanted to end with something fun. Do you want to put March with God up? Does he know about this? Look up the chant, March with God. So, I was saying it takes great courage to follow this path. And there's a chant associated with Sri Yukteswarji called March with God. And it's that courage is coupled with the willpower it takes to pursue things. And this chant is meant to help increase our willpower. And so I thought, let's end with this chant, okay? I'll teach it to you. Okay. How many people have heard this chant before? We haven't really sung it. We should. Okay, so it goes, why don't I sing it first through, okay? March with God, sword in hand, heart of fire. March with God, sword in hand, heart of fire. Shine, devotee, shine, devotee, shine. With his joy, with his love, sword in hand, heart of fire. With his joy, with his love, sword in hand, heart of fire. Shine, devotee, shine, devotee, shine. So, as we sing this, feel as though we are marching with the sword that cuts through delusion and gives us the willpower and the strength and courage to follow the path with all our heart, all our mind, and all our soul. This is how Master said it. Our heart, our mind, and our soul. This is what the Bhagavad Gita says. Our heart, our mind, our soul. We have to convince ourselves, and sometimes it's helpful to sing a chant to convince ourselves even more, okay? March with God, sword in hand, heart of fire. March with God, sword in hand, heart of fire. Shine, devotee, shine, devotee, shine. With his joy, with his love, sword in hand, heart of fire. With his joy, with his love, sword in hand, heart of fire. Shine, devotee, shine, devotee, shine. March with God, sword in hand, heart of fire. March with God, sword in hand, heart of fire. Shine, devotee, shine, devotee, shine. With his joy, with his love, sword in hand, heart of fire. With his joy, with his love, sword in hand, heart of fire. Shine, devotee, shine, devotee, shine. March with God, sword in hand, heart of fire. March with God, sword in hand, heart of fire. Shine, devotee, shine, devotee, shine. With his joy, with his love, sword in hand, heart of fire. is love, sword in hand, heart of fire. Shine, devotee, shine, shine, devotee, shine. March with God, sword in hand, heart of fire. March with God, sword in hand, heart of fire. God bless you.